Where to begin with Captain Marvel? Alright, first off, I didn't think it was as bad as some people. I also don't think it's anywhere near a great movie. Unlike Man of Steel, which has a very flawed hero at its core, Captain Marvel has the exact opposite. A hero that has no flaws. One of the biggest problems that comic writers have with writing Superman is how do you write for the perfect hero who is invincible and all-powerful without throwing kryptonite into every issue? And that's basically what happened with Captain Marvel. In fact, when I first watched it and got to the scene featuring No Doubt's I'm Just a Girl, I realized exactly what happened with this movie. It was literally that someone wrote the script based on that song and didn't have anything else. To be fair, most of the scenes with Sam Jackson, Nick Fury, and Clark Gregg, Phil Coulson, are almost perfect, which I attribute more to those guys knowing their characters so well than to the script. But we aren't here for what they did right. We're here to fix what they did wrong. Namely, Captain Marvel is a boring, perfect character with no flaws. So, let's start off with the introduction. It starts off with Veers having a bad dream and wanting to spar. No problems here. It gives a nice introduction to the main character and her mentor and the planet they're on. As they're sparring, she loses her temper and uses her powers to defeat her teacher. Wow, she does have a flaw! He warns her that relying on that power to defeat your opponent when your opponent is helpless against that power isn't fair. Granted, in a street fight or war, you rely on whatever is available to you to win. However, when teaching life lessons, and especially with regards to comics, play fair is a common and acceptable theme. He's also trying to teach her to learn from her opponent and adapt. When going up against someone bigger and badder, you're not always going to be able to use your power to win. So you have to learn how your opponent acts and reacts so that you can adapt and use other means to win. He even tells her that he wants her to be the best version of herself so that she can use her powers responsibly. We then see a flashback of young Carol on a go-kart track. She's speeding through. One of her instructors or friends ironically pulls alongside her and tells her she's going too fast and that she needs to go slow, then passes her. She speeds up in defiance, then crashes her go-kart because she was going too fast and couldn't control her cart. A man, we assume to be her father, scolds her and says she doesn't belong out there. Any rational person would see this as, if it is her dad, him clearly being scared that his daughter is hurt because she drove recklessly. As someone who has done some stupid things in his life and been yelled at by my parents because they were reacting to their worst fears, this is something most adults should identify with. But we're meant to identify with young Carol being told she shouldn't do something because she's a girl, not because she's reckless and doesn't learn from her mistakes. She goes into another flashback where she's in boot camp attempting to jump from rope to rope and falls because she misses the next rope. Another man, see a theme, says they'll never let her fly. We jump a couple more times in her flashbacks where the same man admits she's a decent pilot, but she's too emotional. The next part of the scene, he says, "You do know why they call it a cockpit, don't you?" Military pilots are arrogant bastards. He was likely trying to get into her pants more than he was trying to tell her that she shouldn't be a pilot, as he even admitted she's good. Of course, as the Skrulls are trying to delve further into her mind in these flashbacks, she starts waking up, which is a very old trope. None of the Skrulls are paying any attention to her. They have the ability to delve into her memories, but they can't tell she's conscious? So, she uses her powers to destroy the contraption because reasons. A scene of clunky exposition later, despite her just having gone through her own memories and her denying those memories, she finally decides to escape but is trapped by the Skrulls who don't know how to use their weapons to carry. The perfection that is Captain Marvel easily beats them all. Once again, she's trapped and is finally subdued, but she uses her powers to beat back the Skrulls. However, due to her lack of control, she blows a hole in the ship. She takes an alien escape pod and works it perfectly because of course she does. But due to the ship being damaged in her attempt, it falls apart in the Earth's atmosphere. She, again, uses her super advanced technology to perfectly adapt 20th century Earth technology to allow communications with her co-fighters. But we get a funny scene, all because reasons. She recognizes local law enforcement, but talks down to and demeans them. Granted, she has no reason to treat them as equals. However, she is stranded on an alien planet and had just treated the security guard very politely in the previous scene. She recognizes the Skrull, once again because reasons, and proceeds to have a knockdown, drag-out fight on a crowded L train, thus endangering hundreds of innocent people. She loses the Skrull and moves on. The biker scene is cringe, but thankfully better than the original scene, which essentially had her being Arnold Schwarzenegger in the original Terminator. Someone forgot he was the bad guy in that movie, and they re-edited to have the biker just be an arrogant ass. She still ends up being the villain, as she steals clothes and the bike with no repercussions. The scene between Veers and Fury is funny, but her thinking that showing off her photon blast is somehow proof that she's not a bad guy is once again, and I've rarely used the phrase once again so many times in my life, arrogant as hell. She's fully aware that he has no clue what a Skrull is, yet she's still stupid enough to think that he can understand the difference between different alien species that he doesn't even know exist. Also, they exchange knowledge of each other, but nothing they say or do actually proves anything. It's just another scene that doesn't make any sense despite the amusement that's within it. We then have the fight scene in the records room where her power goes from stun blast to destroy a 5-foot wide, 1-foot thick block of concrete blast. In the next scene with her former co-pilot or friend or whatever, she suddenly can't tell the difference between a Skrull and a regular person. She suddenly, again, gets all her memories back and is angry, but now turns against the Kree and sides with the Skrulls for yet another time because, once again, reasons. So, 15 minutes of clunky exposition later, we finally get to the Skrull Haven ship in orbit above Earth. Carol finally realizes her powers are being inhibited by the chip in the back of her neck instead of being used to focus her or help her control them. She meets with Mar-Vell and is beaten down in her own mind. She relives her own failures and is told she's not good enough. Mar-Vell is played by a woman, so the oppression message gets lost. She remembers herself getting back up each time after her failure. Congrats! You realize that if at first you don't succeed, try again. But it was supposed to be a message about male oppression, so why is it a message about believing in yourself? She claims she's been hampered by the chip, when in reality, it kept her from destroying everything around her! Next is the just a girl fight scene. Yep, she's just a girl, beating up everybody who held her down all those years. You know, her friends. Mentors, the people who've been working with her and trusting her for the last 6 years, have been holding her back, apparently. I know whenever I look back at my life and all the things I haven't accomplished, I blame the other people in my life and not myself for my own shortcomings. I'm not really going to get into the scene where Maria Rambeau knows how to fly a space plane, as it's essentially the same dogfight scene from Independence Day with Will Smith. I may do that one someday, but for now we've come to expect this in movies. But Captain Marvel attempting to break into the ship, being shot off, and falling to her doom, only to realize she can use her powers to save herself and use them perfectly because of course she can! We have no explanation of what her powers are, why they make her invincible or super fast, or any of this. Then we just have mass quantities of death. Hundreds, if not thousands of Kree are killed with reckless abandon, but she allows her leader to live and escape. Finally, she faces her old mentor, who tries to goad her into a fair fight. The one time she uses her power properly, as this is not a fair fight situation. However, him trying to goad her is a stupid scene in the first place, as he knows she's temperamental and will just cheat anyway. How to fix it? The worst offender of this movie is Brie Larson herself. Unlike literally every other actor in the MCU, there's so little joy in her acting. Most of the time she's absolutely deadpanning everything that's going on around her. As Harold Zoid kept saying in the Futurama episode, That's Lobstertainment, emote! A very close second offender to this was basing the script off of that No Doubt song, and the scriptwriters trying to figure out how to write for a girl. Okay, I'm going to do a tiny rant here. When scripts are written for males, nobody sits there and wonders, how do I write this to be more masculine? They just write for the character. So why do so many writers suddenly have this problem and wonder how to make the writing more about being female? Let the character be the character. The actor is supposed to make the choice to be more or less feminine. Write a good character, write a good story, write a good scene, and a good actor will make those words shine with the life you wanted. Or hopefully make them even better. Alright, so we get an actor who can show emotions other than stoicism, and a writer who has decided to make Captain Marvel a superhero who happens to be a woman rather than an already perfect woman who happens to be a superhero. Now, onto the first scene again. The first scene is actually really good. It does a decent job of setting up the character dynamic, their relationship, and establishes their roles within the movie and the fact that they're not on Earth. You have an arrogant student who thinks she knows everything, and a teacher who has affection toward her in an ambiguous way, but he genuinely wants her to be her best self. This is what the movie should be based around. It'd be like jumping into The Karate Kid with Mr. Miyagi already teaching Danielson, and we get the flashbacks to the bullies throughout the movie. The scenes with the go-kart, and the softball game, and the boot camp, and all of that. Have her remember them the same way. This sets up her character flaw of being temperamental and not being able to control her emotions. It will be resolved later, but for now, cut them down a bit to just remember constantly being rebellious and getting angry. The Skrulls not paying attention to her is stupid. In fact, there's no reason to have her wake up and sneak looks at the Skrulls at all. She's being goaded in her memories. She's getting upset at everyone telling her she's too emotional and can't do anything right. show that it's affecting her in the real world and her powers are coalescing, and finally she bursts free of the contraption out of her inability to control herself. She falls and starts fighting because she's trapped and confused, not because she's calculating and better than everyone else and tricks them. After she does that, she escapes into the corridors and is fairly quickly trapped. She gets off a few good shots, but have them subdue her quickly. She's still in shackles and shouldn't be able to take on 8 to 10 trained fighters with no problems. As she gets dragged into the room to be contained further, have that be the moment she blows the hole in the ship. After she gets back, she has to start realizing she's dangerous to herself and others because she can't control herself. She gets into the escape pod, has trouble figuring it out. The Skrull gun blast seals her in, sets the pod free, but also destroys the panel, causing her to fall uncontrollably. Her power should kick in out of fear, which is how she survives the fall. As she climbs out of the rubble in the blockbuster, she's wondering how her powers activated. This gives the audience and viewers a glimpse into her capabilities and provides a learning moment. The technology adapting scene is stupid. Later, they have her just have audio. The first time, they have her have perfect holographic video despite nothing recording her. Just have the gauntlet do something. Also, telephone landlines in the 1990s did not have satellite capabilities, but Radio Shack did sell satellite dishes. Have her use a damn satellite dish to send her signal and skip the holographic video of herself. When Fury and Coulson show up, viewers should attempt to exact authority over them. Use them to track down the Skrulls. Obviously, they feel she's a threat and try to arrest her, and the rest of the scene goes as written, but just that slight change would make it more believable. Stealing from a fourth movie here, think Buzz Lightyear in the first Toy Story when he meets Woody. That is how viewers should be acting with Fury here. On to the L Train. There should be some sort of tell the Skrull has to give himself away that the audience can see. Whether it's a slight greenness in the skin, or having dentures in a jar but also teeth in the mouth, just something where the audience can also go, "Oh, it's that person." She didn't recognize that the Coulson standing 10 feet from her was a Skrull. She doesn't recognize that a human later on the film is not a Skrull, so there's no reason for her to recognize this one unless this one is just bad at shapeshifting. Have one of them take the fight outside immediately. If the Skrulls are good guys, have him escape out of the window after being hit, as he doesn't want innocent people getting hurt. Get rid of the biker scene. The original scene was terrible, the cut-down scene's bad and cringe. Just lose it all together and have her steal the biking clothes without anyone seeing her. Actually, considering her suit apparently has the ability to change appearances, why not just make the suit do the work of looking like a t-shirt, jeans, and leather jacket? It would make absolute sense to be part of a covert team that has a chameleon suit. Bam! She's slightly less of a bad guy by not stealing clothes and only has to figure out transportation. Her gauntlet should be providing more information to her. Have her scan things and show instructions on how to use them. Fury tracks her down because she passes cops going 120 miles an hour, and he calls them off, which is how he knows where she is and how she gets to being there without being caught for Grand Theft Auto. The exchange scene is cute. It's funny, but Fury should lay into Veers more about the fact that he has no way of knowing whether she's the good alien or bad alien. Also, after her photon blast and her saying Skrulls can't do that, he should ask, "Can all of your people do that?" And she suddenly realizes that she's the only one who can do that. This would make her question her identity further and give her something to build a relationship with Fury on. As they are traveling to the military base, and while in the base, continue building that relationship between Veers and Fury. Have her talk to him about her powers and her control issues. This gives the audience some exposition about her past while also explaining her abilities and limits. Have her tell him that sometimes she feels restricted, like her powers could do more, but she has a hard time focusing them. During the fight scenes, it would be more clear as to how and when a blast will stun someone and another blast will absolutely destroy. As she's getting her memories back, have her remember context. Her dad was worried about her on the go-kart track and didn't know how to express himself properly. The pitcher's finger slipped while playing softball or baseball, and that's why the ball was thrown at her. The guy who dogged her during boot camp and flight school had worse grades than her and was jealous, so he goaded her into anger so she'd screw up. She realizes she was her own worst enemy. She remembers how every time they attacked the Skrulls, most of them were unarmed and a few had inferior weapons, which leads her to question why her team was sent in to kill them all. Then they can go to the Haven ship and it all makes sense for her, and she understands she was fighting for the wrong side. Now, when Veers meets up with the Supreme Intelligence, she figures out that her powers have been inhibited and that her own emotions have been what's kept her from controlling her powers the way she needs to. Get rid of the chip, destroy the intelligence, and start the big fight scene. Since she understands her powers and how to control them, it now makes sense that she can beat her former team. She's also remembering how they fight and throw that kind of exposition in there as well, where she's telling them what they do and how she's countering them. Kind of a Peter Parker moment, if you will. Now, for the song playing. How about Elastica, Stutter, or Veruca Salt Volcano Girls, or another female-fronted band that has a kick-ass song? Lastly, now that Captain Marvel has her full powers and she's understanding how her emotions have been holding her back over control over them, we get a better sense of the abilities she has and why. So, the missiles coming down on the Earth and her ability to do something about them makes more sense as she's more established. I would probably just have her photon blast things like crazy rather than show the super strength that has not been established yet, but that could be a discovery too. Instead of having Captain Marvel destroying ships all willy-nilly, have the ships constantly colliding and shooting each other as she dodges them. Again, give her discovery of her powers. She's learning how to fly and dodge and weave in and out of everything. Then she's not responsible for hundreds of deaths as she's merely going through self-preservation. In her denouement, when she faces her old teacher, have him take credit for her. She's finally become her best self. She's overcome her character flaw and realized herself as a hero. He's proud of her. Have him try to use that as a means to lower her defenses and let him go. When she tells him she can't, he lures her in closer and tries to best her in a one-on-one fight for his fate, and that's when he attempts to cheat her by using a weapon which allows her to blast him. The student has become the master. The circle is complete. All that jazz. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit that like button. Subscribe for more content, ring the notification bell, and follow me on social media. Links in the description down below.